Hey guys, it's Barb. Hope everyone is had a good weekend, and I'm hoping everybody's having a good Monday. Um, Tonight's topic is going to be how to combat negative self-talk, the inner bully. Um, so let's start with talking about what is negative self-talk. When I was, I guess, probably in my 20s, I didn't really understand the whole depression. I mean, I felt it, but I didn't really realize there was like triggers and all this other stuff. And then like I hated being alone. I could not stand being alone. And finally, like, through therapy and things, we started talking in my, probably I'd say my 30s. I started talking to my therapist about like what I was feeling and why I hated, because they were like, well, why do you hate being alone? And I was like, well, because all these thoughts of negative thoughts come into my head, and it's like thoughts, you know, thoughts that are like name calling and just, poking fun and things like that. Not really poking fun, it's just more like criticism, like constant criticism. Um, so the first question I asked myself is, what is negative self-talk? That's the first question that had to be answered. So my therapist and I discussed it, and it's basically when we, tell ourselves like, you're stupid, or, you're not pretty enough, or you're not smart enough, or whatever. Sometimes these things come from just, human nature, and the fact that, like, as humans, we tend to be very self-critical. Like, we tend to look at our lives or judge things a little harsher. If we're judging ourselves, it's harsher because we're trying to be better. We're trying to be, there's a lot of pressure to feel like you need to be better and be perfect, in this world. So in that regard, some of it comes from just self-criticism, and then others come from, like, unfortunately, verbal abuse that we've experienced in our lives. That's an unfortunate circumstance, but it is true that happens. So in my particular case, it was both. I've been in around a lot of toxic people in my life. I've had bosses that were toxic. That's another story. Things like that, just like toxic boyfriends, controlling, just a lot of different things. So in my experience, it was both. And so, like, when I decided that I wanted to, get better, I had to sit and think about it. And, I sat down and I started to write down, like, some of the things that I say to myself, I realized that I would be like, oh, you're old, okay? People get old. Everybody gets older every year, so that's not stopping anybody. But I learned to be, like, talking back. You know what I mean? Like, I was a teenager. I was a professional at talking back. You get good at it. Plus, I was a female. But, I got good at it. But it's like I never really took that approach to dealing with my inner bully. So it was like, okay, well, you're overweight. And then I would answer by saying, okay, things to do. I can, diet, exercise. I can do something about that. So that's not really a reason to hate myself. So what else do you have? And then it was like, oh, you're stupid. And I was like, okay, well, the fact that I lived this life and know that every time I've been in school, whether it be college or, well, college, I didn't, like, it wasn't as easy, but growing up through school, all the way through high school, barely having to try, barely having to study. And usually I did really well, like A's and B's. I was an A and B student, and B's used to upset me, but I processed and accepted that. I just couldn't get the C's. But it wasn't parent driven, it was more me driven. Like, I expected myself to get A's and B's, but that's that self-criticism I was talking about before. It's like I want to be, like, I love to learn stuff. I like to know stuff. I like to be knowledgeable, things like that. But, so the fact that I grew up in this, in this life, and I know that learning comes easy to me, and it's something I enjoy doing. Obviously, I'm not stupid. So, that's just a lie. So, what else do you got, And it was like, I guess by doing that, talking back, and that challenging for the next thing, that was like an insult or meant to keep me from trying to win or to achieve things or whatever, eventually I shut it down because it ran out of things to say. I had an answer for every single thing. And again, none of the reasons that I was given was a reason to dislike myself. So that was, then I started to, I started with that. And then after combating it, I started to like actually give myself credit for the things that I do well. Like, I'm nice to people. I try not to, I like to keep everything smooth sailing, but I will, I guess, sometimes that's backfired because being a people pleaser and trying to keep everything running smoothly and avoiding confrontation, all of those things, other videos. But all of those things tend to, I guess, they tend to make you, focus on, like, what can you do about these problems? Because, like, I don't feel like like I had said before, when I started to think about and process the things that I'm talking about, like, in my head, like, oh, you're dumb, nobody's going to want to date you for this reason, or you'll be alone forever, and you're never going to achieve anything because of this, that, and the next thing. I heard a lot of that when I was trying to make this, like, launch this podcast. And I feel like a lot of it came from the fact that there's been a lot of things that I've allowed fear to keep me from doing. And creating this podcast was something I've talked about for years, and nothing's ever happened because I'm waiting for, like, that perfect moment or that perfect video or that perfect topic or my makeup's perfect or whatever. But like I said, I didn't want to waste any more time just talking about stuff. I just wanted to do it. And that's why, like, I mean, yeah, I'll have makeup on sometimes in these videos, but, like, if I don't have time for makeup, then we're just going to go as is, because this is a mental health blog, and I'm not going to continue to be self-critical of myself. It's hot today. It's like 100 degrees, and there's no air conditioning in here, so I always keep a wet towel. I take it to work. I wear it everywhere when I go outside. Keeps me from overheating, I suppose. But I feel like, like, I can let you in on a little tidbit. So since I don't know how to video edit, obviously I haven't edited any of these videos, and I don't even watch them, because I feel like if I were to watch the video, there's a very good chance that I could actually find probably 10 to 15 reasons why I shouldn't post that video, or, oh, I'm going to have to remake it. So I don't want to have to put myself through that, because there's that self-judgment again, that negative self-talk, anything to help me procrastinate, I guess. But I'm focusing, I'm making sure that these get out. I'm still not ahead of the game like I'm going to be. Later tonight, I'm going to get ahead of the game. I'm going to film Wednesdays and Fridays, because it's too much for me. And it's too much for me to try to figure out, like, oh, okay, I've got like 2 hours and I've got to do this, 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 and this. And then I got to get this episode up at 8 o'clock. And then sometimes YouTube takes a long time to upload the videos, and that just makes it take longer. So that's all I have for today. And yeah, I will talk to you all on Wednesday. I hope everybody enjoys the rest of their today and their whole tomorrow, and even their Wednesday, because I post at 8 p.m. So I hope everybody enjoys their time. Try to stay cool. I don't know where everybody's located, but I know it's hot and miserable. But I hope that everyone enjoys their next couple days, and they look forward to the video on Wednesday. Don't forget about it. But until then, God bless.